cycling tour.
What are they eating then? Like, I mean, so like, I feel like if I was to like think back 20 years ago, 15 years ago, you hear all the stories of people eating shit all the time and not having anything good. Like, is that what pro athletes that you were working with on the tour were eating? Were they eating a McDonald's style diet? Was it decent?
Yeah,
Like,
I think it wasn't really a McDonald's style diet, but it was what I would call a hotel buffet diet.
got it.
Because you're going from hotel to hotel and you're kind of beholden to the kitchen in that hotel and whatever they might happen to have on that menu. And this is where we started to bring our own food trucks and our own chefs on tour, right? The small investment of
It's like
$100,000.
powdered eggs. People are eating.
It's the worst, right? If you have the powdered egg buffet thing and you're putting the little, I don't know, the freaking toast through the machine, and it's like, oh my gosh, we're at a Holiday Inn, they got pancake batter or whatever. Like, yeah. So we're on, like, I don't know, bad business food.
Yeah.
Um,
Why like just a general food, hydration, nutrition statement, comment, question. Is it just because like all this food, it just seems like it's so not good for you, right? Mm-hmm. Like when you think about it, but yet it's a huge percentage of our daily diets and it's what's pushed out there. Like what made it acceptable? Is it just because from a marketing perspective, like I've seen someone like a Jesse Itzler push for stuff from like just the cereal of that is pushed towards kids and how it's, quote unquote healthy and good for them. He's like, no, it's garbage. Like it's gone through the same ringer that your weed, the weed feed for your grass has gone through. Like this is not good for your kids. Like why has kind of the food world been so allowing, or why have people been so allowing of such bad food to be shoved down our throats?
Yeah, there's a real simple answer to that. And there's a really interesting history to that. And the simple answer to that is population growth. The simple answer is starvation. The simple answer is that around, the turn of the 20th century, say the Gilded Age of America coming into, the 20th century, let's say 1885 to like 1910, there was a real fear with respect to population growth in America that we were going to starve, that our farms and our agriculture did not have the capacity to feed all of the people who were immigrating and coming to America. And there was this guy named Buckminster Fuller, who was a renowned thinker and scientist, who basically helped to start the industrialization of food in America. And this is where you start to find things like the Harvard Fatigue Laboratory and the USDA come into play and say, hey, what is the energy expenditure of the average human working on a farm? How much yield can we get out of this plot of land? Can we make enough wheat? Can we preserve our food for a long enough time so that we can not die? And there was all of this good intent in the industrialization of food. And it's the industrialization of food, as opposed to us individually growing our own food, tending to, our animals and being able to literally cook from scratch, that has changed our whole entire food ecosystem, right? And that was, continued to get even bigger during World War II, where now you needed prepackaged food for soldiers, etc. If you think about it, one of the biggest innovations in war was Napoleon canning food, right? Because now he had a supply chain to feed his soldiers. And in a lot of ways, that happened during World War II. It continued into the 50s. It's gotten to a point now where food is so industrialized in America that, what's pushed upon us are not necessarily nutrients, but calories, cheap calories.
Yeah. So you started with the sports drink. How did you go through the evolution of adding products and SKUs to the business? What were the determining factors involved in that? Or
yeah, well, I mean, I'll back up a little bit and say that when we were making the sports drinks for our friends, there was not even a vision to start a business at the time, right?
Yeah.
And certain things push you into that. And what happened for us was that we were making this drink mix for these athletes, and they were secretly using this drink mix in lieu of their,
sponsors yeah.
because they were having issues with those other drinks. And word got around to different companies that these athletes were using a secret drink mix. And this company came to us and basically said, hey, look, we hear that you've got this secret drink mix. We also hear that you're in this world of trouble right now. How about we buy all the intellectual property around your formulas and ideas? We'll make you a millionaire overnight and you'll be set. And I was like, yes, let's do this. And so initially I was just going to sell these ideas to this company, but I get this contract from them, and nowhere in this contract does it say, you're now a millionaire, please sign here. It was full of all of this jargon that I didn't understand. I hired an intellectual property lawyer to try to suss it out for me and to help educate myself and Ian. And we met at this outdoor cafe called Spruce Confections here in Boulder. And as we were overviewing the contract, a bird flew overhead and literally took a dump on this contract. And so long story short, Skratch Labs initially started because of a magical bird poop.
Oh, that's great.
Wow.
It was for us this kind of omen that seeded a question. Can we do this ourselves? Do we have the capacity, not knowing anything about business, to actually even try? And I flew out to call this whole deal off. And that evening I was at this charity event, and sitting right across from me was Gary Erickson, the founder of Cliff Bar. And I'm like, Gary, I got a story for you about a bird poop. And I shared this story with him, and he shared the story of his founding of Cliff Bar. And, like 3 hours later, we're like all verklempt and like teary eyed and everything. And he's just like, you got to try, like anything is possible. And I think he was a big inspiration, as was that bird dump, as was that next day. I'm on this bike ride. I bump into my old college roommate, Aaron Foster. And Aaron was at the time working as a stand-up comedian. And I'm like, Aaron, I got a funny story for you. And we laugh about it. Then I ask him this simple question. I'm like, dude, Foster. His name was Aaron Foster. I always called him Foster or Sleepy. And I'm like, dude, Foster, how do we start a business? And he says to me, well, how many pounds of this stuff do you have? And I'm like, well, on a good day, we can make like 100 pounds in the paint shaker. He's like, all right, well, here's what you do. You take your product, you take your 100 pounds, and you sell it for real money. Then you take that money and you put it in this thing called the bank. And then you use the money in the bank to make more product. And you just keep on repeating the process until you make more and more money, put more and more money in the bank. And then he looks at me all seriously and he says, but there's only one rule. There's only one rule you can't break. And I'm like, oh my God, what's the rule? What's the rule? And he's like, dude, you can never spend more money than is in the bank. And I was like, oh my goodness, you are a freaking genius. Do you want to help us start a business? And he was like, yeah, sure. And so Aaron drove out to Colorado, and myself, Aaron, and Ian, we just kind of started bumbling around.
What's that hardware shop? McLaren? What is it called?
McGuckin.
Are they still around?
They're still around. They're family-owned hardware. They're a locally owned hardware business.
Are you guys friends? Do they hate you? Like where? Like
they love us. Like on one of our birthday anniversaries, they got a bunch of their employees around their paint shaker, and they took a little picture for us saying,
"Yeah." I mean, I was thinking you can do some small batch, limited small batch release.
Yeah, and look, here's the thing: is that it only worked because they were just a small local business, right? Yeah, they sell Tide detergent there, just like the Target does. But the difference between me buying Tide at McGuckin is that a greater percentage of that dollar stays in my community when I buy it at McGuckin than when I buy it at a big box store, right? And I think it's this localism, especially around Boulder, especially in the food space here, that provided us the mentorship, the knowledge, the access to co-packers, that helped us to really create a real business.
Yeah, Boulder's got they're notorious for their startup scene. Did you get involved in the startup scene, or did you just kind of lay low and do your thing?
We got involved in the startup scene, not from a funding perspective, but from a mentorship perspective. And there was just an ample amount of people that we could ask questions to if we had questions about branding or design or legal aspects of our business or operating systems and things of this nature. There were so many people in our community who were willing to help us and to educate us and to be patient with us and to let us make mistakes, but then also to pick up the phone when we were freaking out. And it was all very, very much appreciated. And it allowed us to grow at our own rate, at our own speed. There's the rate at which money can grow a business, but that doesn't always meet the rate at which human beings can grow, change, and learn, right? And so we are very fortunate that the growth of our business was able to pace with the growth of ourselves and our people.
If you're in an elevator with someone, they said, "Give me the Skratch Labs elevator pitch." What is Skratch?
Yeah, I think we might say that, hey, we're a small sports nutrition company. We make products. For example, we make sports drinks for people who normally hate sports drinks. We make energy bars for people who hate energy bars. We're kind of the more boutique version of what you might find in terms of commodity sports nutrition products. So we're not your GNC, we're not your Gatorade. We're your small shop that has a real niche focus on people who are really serious about their activity and their sport, and who are finding that they're having problems with regular products.
And you bootstrapped this, right?
Yeah, we bootstrapped it. We were pretty ignorant and very, very lucky that we followed some very, very simple rules about business. To Aaron's, kind of point, we just didn't spend more money than was in the bank. And what we found in that is that it forced us to solve problems in a unique way. And it also forced us to say no to a lot of things that we didn't have the capacity to do. And if you believe in someone like, Michael Porter, right, the economist, his whole thing about business and competitive strategy is that you have to be unique and you have to say no. And by accident, because we were cash limited, we had to be unique and we had to say no. As an example, we didn't have a way to be able to pay for us being at expos, at big athletic events. If you want to go to a big athletic event that, has thousands of people who gather for like a run or a cycling event, etc., it might cost anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 to just pop up a tent and be able to sample your wares, right? And those field marketing events are super, super impactful because you're catching people in the moment of their need or activity. And so with a friend, Bijou Thomas, who's an incredible chef and restaurateur in town, I was lamenting about this problem. He was like, dude, why don't we just get a food truck, show up to these events? You could make money in real time to pay for the event and at the same time show off your products. And I'm like, that is so crazy. Like, how much does a food truck or trailer cost, and yada, yada, yada. And we figured it out, and we had just enough money to pull this off. And we kind of gambled, and we bought this old used funnel truck from a carnival, like on the, in Virginia or something.
Oh, like a funnel cake truck?
Yeah, exactly. We revamped it. We borrowed a truck from some friends at Nissan. They had like some sort of fleet demo program. We're like, hey, we'll drive your truck to events if you let us borrow it for a year. And they're like, okay, whatever. We pick up this trailer and we started cooking for folks at these athletic events. And we suddenly realized that there was very poor food at these athletic events. You show up to an athletic event and you're not going to get high quality food that you need for the race or for, your recovery or for even before the race. And, we had lines like going out of this place, this little food trailer, and we made enough money to pay for all these field marketing events through that program. It was brutal work though, working in a food truck, but it also gave us an outsized footprint in terms of field marketing that didn't cost us, but that made money.
You brought